Holy cow, did we get to summer in a hurry. Okay, now this is at the swimming pool when we were on our way to Florida. And we stopped at this motel. Yeah, there I am in that silly hat again. And let's see if I can pick out who is who. Oh, that's Debbie in the black swimming suit. There's Patty. Oh, and those goggles. Oh, I tell you, kids had farm. What swimmers, what divers. Okay, there's Tom and Jim. I know Dan was with us at that time. That's Dan, sitting on the edge of the pool. Yeah, that is Dan. That's Tom and Jim in the water, and Danny on the edge of the pool. The next time we went down and stopped at that motel is when Dan was about 5, and somebody had thrown all the furniture in the pool. Oh, look at Debbie. And Dan, at the age of 5, was diving down and pulling that furniture up. Oh, Deb, you're a good swimmer. You weren't really excited about that trip, Deb. You know why? I think you don't like heat. And Florida was hot. Oh, wait till we get to Florida and you see some of the outfits we're wearing. You're going to want to go into mass hiding, I think. Yeah, that's me and Dan and Tom and Jim. It seems to me this is where Dad takes a picture of some blonde broad walking along. Good boy. Look at that. Yeah, that's Dan. I wonder why we wore swimming hats in those days. Sure, there's the blonde he's taking a picture of. I think we had to wear swimming hats in pools because they used to say that the hair would clog the pool. Excuse me, this is down in Pensacola Beach. We rented this house down there on Santa Rosa Island for, I think we paid $120 for the whole week. Now you understand the house wasn't too much, but it was right on the water. Oh, it was wonderful. And it was so full of sand in there. Hello, Dan. Hello, Tom. And we just had the best time. It was so neat. And do you believe we brought our own meat with us because we were told that the meat in Florida was just not really very good. So we would get the meat and pack it in dry ice and bring it with us. And as I say, can you imagine there were 7 of us at that time, and we rode in that Buick. And that's when we had the baby mattress across that back seat. And everybody lie down, go to sleep. As I say, no air conditioning, windows of the car open and all that air blowing in. But what the heck, we didn't know any different. And what we would do, because, oh, that's a cute pose. Everybody had the skin that would burn, except Dan and I weren't too bad. The rest of you had that red hair complexion. So we would go out on the beach in the mornings, and then in the afternoons we would go and do the sightseeing, and then come back about 4 and go back in the water so that everybody didn't get burned to a crisp. But I tell you, I've been on a few beaches in my time, and I still say the beaches in that Gulf Coast area were without a doubt the most beautiful. The sand was just like salt or sugar. It was white and fine. It was just lovely. And they had this was up at the main public beach, and we'd go up there and look around. They had a place where you could play games and stuff that eventually burned down. But wait till you see the outfits and the hats on all of us. It was a riot. I don't think we went swimming up in this area. We did that at our own beach. And that was ideal because we just walk out the front door and like the little ones, I guess Dan at that age would take a nap, and I could watch down at the beach and listen for the baby in the crib. So it was an ideal spot. Look at those hats, would you just? I'm surprised anybody let us out of the house looking like we looked. Talk about the squatleys. Lord have mercy. Oh, there's the cantina. That's where they had it wouldn't have been video games in those days. I don't know what the heck was in there. But that eventually all burned down, and well, you'd never recognize this whole area anymore. But it was neat, and it was like, well, we would leave about 2 o'clock in the morning and put sleeping children in the car, and we'd stop somewhere in Kentucky at a little park, and I'd bring little boxes of cereal and milk and orange juice, and we would have that. And then we'd stop about 10 o'clock in the morning and have a big breakfast. Oh, and we just thought that was the neatest thing. And we'd spend the night somewhere and then arrive the next morning around noon. Oh, you kids had more fun playing in those waves. That's Tom. And that's me. Oh, that was the year that the wave came over the top of me and a whole school of fish came over my head and went down inside my swimming suit, and I almost had a stroke and scared your father to death. He thought sure I was yanking the swimming suit off. And then I shook my legs and the fish fell out dead, of course. And then I put my hand on my stomach and I said, oh my gosh. And with that, there was another one in there. No wonder I got white hair. I earned it. That's Tom and Jim and Patty. I guess Danny's taking a nap at this point. Whoop. That was fun, wasn't it? In these days, I don't like to go in anything that I don't know what's in there. Look at Bob. Now, he'd have so much clothes on because he was so fair. Do you believe that hat? I think he's going to walk right out into the surf with all of his clothes on. And almost loses his hat. I think it almost floated away. I tell you, we weren't too creative, I'll say that. Oh. Of course, you notice I'm holding my nose. I do that in the bathtub, though. I was never much of an aquatic person. Thank God I'm broad that I didn't get annihilated. Whoops. We did have fun on those trips. We only went down there twice. The second time we went down, Debbie didn't go. But David was about 2 when we went down the second time. And we used to get those little rubber rafts. And you kids floated on those. I guess maybe that was the second time we went down, because I sure don't see any sign of them now. Oh my gosh, that was Fort something or another. I think that's where Geronimo was buried, or he hid out or did something. Oh, and this is at Pensacola Air Force Base or whatever it was. And I think that's when we used Grandpa's panoramic film. I gotta tell you, this is pretty dull stuff. It was a pretty dull excursion to Pensacola Air Force Base. But we ran around and saw all those things. That was some sort of a fort that they'd built. And there goes a plane taking off. Either that or a big bird. Oh, look at the helicopter. No, I guess that's what it was. Yeah, that was Pensacola. That would have been about 1960, I would say, in that category. You'd think we'd never seen an airplane before, wouldn't you? I'm telling you, maybe we knew somebody that was flying in it. Otherwise, why would we keep taking pictures? Oh, Dad, when you did this editing, you should have cut all this baloney out. Of course, in due time, those planes will look more like something from the long-lost past than they even do now. Those are all antique little suckers by now. I didn't even realize they had helicopters at that stage. Come on, Bob, we saw enough of it. Oh, now we're seeing their survival course. I'm sure we must have thought it was interesting at the time, or we certainly wouldn't have done it. And maybe someday you all will go back and you'll see that and you'll say, I've seen that before. And it wasn't interesting then. Oh my gosh, the Gulfarium. Remember the Gulfarium? In fact, Dave and Dan, Dan didn't go, Dave. A couple of years ago, we went to the Gulfarium. It's probably still the same dolphin that leaps up and gets that fish. But boy, at that time, we thought that was cool. That was in Fort Walton Beach, which is next door to Pensacola Island. And it's between Destin and Pensacola Beach. And now we've gone to Destin several times in the last few years, which is really a neat spot. And same old dolphins keeps jumping. I think he gets it out of the man's mouth or something. Can you imagine putting a fish in your mouth and letting a dolphin come up and get it out? I wish we'd show the man up there. Poor fish just keeps jumping up. Good grief. We usually only take, oh, there he is. Usually only take pictures of our children. Oh, now go ahead, put it in your mouth. See, there it is in his mouth. Can you imagine growing up and wanting to be a man that stands with a fish in his mouth that a dolphin comes up and gets? Well, go get it, dolphin. Now that's a clever act. Oh, there, thank God. Can you imagine putting a raw fish in your mouth? Oh, I think I'm saying Mother is sunbathing. Well, that's Dan, Jim, Tom, Patty. I don't know where Debbie is. That was the first time that I ever got a tan. Oh, in there was a shower that you could wash the sand off before you went in the house. Didn't work, I gotta tell you. The house and the bed and everything would be so sandy. Oh, that's cute. We're playing badminton on the carport. They say imagine that, I think it was $120 a week that we paid for that. Of course, it wasn't air conditioned or anything, but that's all right. We just were so excited to be on the beach with that water and stuff, and we'd only stay for a week, which was plenty long. Oh, what a life. I sure can't complain about how hard I worked, can I? Shouldn't have taken a picture of me doing that. Run, Dan. Yeah, I think that's the one where Dan kept running. No, I think it was the next time we went down that Dave kept running up. You know, that is fun for kids to be able to play in those waves. This is what we ought to do if we go down again, is get a place that is right on the beach, so you've got that private beach to deal with. Whoops. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Jim, you're going to float out to sea. That was Debbie and Patty. There goes Dan. Run, run, run. If he runs much faster, he's going to lose his britches. I think this is where Bob finally goes out into the water. Poor Jim's going to float right out to the Atlantic or wherever that Gulf of Mexico goes. Oh, now we got water in the eye. That's no fun. Yeah, Dan, you would have been about 2.5 at that point. and Jim would be about 5, I guess, and Tom about 6. And I was, good, what was I? It's probably about 33, 34, 35. Yeah, no, it's probably about 33, I guess. 32, 33. Holy cow, and they had all those kids. You know, I don't think hardly any of those houses are left there anymore. But I'd like to go back and see sometime. In fact, if you go further down that island of Santa Rosa, it's Navarre where they shot the film Jaws. And they say that really is lovely. That really got hit by the hurricane a couple of years ago. I don't know, I think Pensacola got it pretty bad too. But the beaches are so deep and the sand is so fine that it really is a great area. And as you can see by looking, you kids did enjoy it. And probably the whole vacation didn't cost more than $500. Isn't that incredible with that many children? Oh, this is this is in Pensacola Beach. It's a reproduction of a little old community. I don't think this is going to be much more exciting than the Air Force Academy. So with a little luck, we'll get in and out of it. But see, I told you we did all this to keep from getting too sunburned. No, I think we'd have been better off to stay home and get sunburned. Because this was not... Well, that looks like it was the church. I don't know why somebody isn't walking around blessing themselves now that I'm thinking about it. Oh, I can recognize the hats. That must be our group. Yeah, it's our group. They were back to the Squatleys. I don't remember what kind of a village it was, but it was some sort of a old village that maybe the Indians inhabited or something. This is another fort of some kind, I think, where you kids ended up climbing up something. And of course, I don't stand on a chair well without thinking somebody's going to fall off. And Dad has got all of you climbing up to the top of whatever this thing is. And I'm about to have nervous prostrations. This is another fort of some sort, which I suppose is not unusual to have all these fortresses along the Gulf Coast. They were protecting themselves from some invaders. I don't know who was trying to invade the Gulf Coast down there. I think it was just the people from New York. Now, what is this? Oh, I think that's that same fort. Come on, Bob, let's move out of this fort. We've seen it and done it, and now we'll move on. You know, it would help. And I said I was going to do all of this while I still knew what it was. So I may make this up. I think this was where Geronimo holed up. Or did I say that before? Geronimo was held there. The Apache Indians were there. And many years later, Jim did a whole story on Indians. And I'll bet you $10 he was inspired by this trip to this fort where Geronimo was held, and he just felt so badly that he said, I'm going to do a series and vindicate these poor Indians who were... Do you know what happened now? I'm sure I'll get this wrong, but if I do, Jim will straighten you out. But the Indians were shipped from Mexico to Florida, and supposedly were supposed to be returned to Mexico. Okay, well, they had promised that they would return Geronimo and the Indians to Mexico, but after about 20 years, they never did do it and imprisoned poor Geronimo there. So see here, I was making light of that whole affair, and I apologize. I mean, one can be that way when you're not an Indian. Now, I don't know if this is the next trip down or if we're still down there in Florida. Well, that's my same swimming suit, so I don't know if that means any. No, this is the same trip because Debbie's there. Oh, this is the one I think where, Debbie, you weren't too thrilled to be getting your picture taken. I don't remember why. But at least maybe this will mean we don't have to go to another historic place that I won't know what it is. But I'm going to start making up things really quick. This time I'm not going to wait. Now, wait, that's Patty. Yeah, that's it. There's Debbie and Dan and me. Poor Bob. I should take a movie and let that man get into some. Oh, Deb. No wonder you got a little testy. No wonder. Whoops. There you go. I think this is the one where Dad finally gets out in the water and his hat almost floats away. But Dad had to stay under wraps so much because he always got burned so badly. Whoa, Deb, you really got it that time. I'll tell you, we had a long trip down there, didn't we? I think the trip was cheap. We must have spent a mint on movie film. I tell you, those were some rough seas that day. Is this the one where it just keeps floating back out again? I'm sure we should have figured out something else to do, boys, rather than just come in and go out continually. That's Patty on there with you two guys. And I guess Dan was out of there because he would have gotten totally annihilated at his age. I keep thinking this is the movie, Debbie, where you weren't too thrilled. And you kind of let us know. Oh, there's Bob in his hat. At last. Yeah, he almost got floated away. Poor guy, he was so busy taking movies all the time. Whoa. Is he coming up again? Oh, oh, jeez. Now I know where we got that big hat we put on Dan. You know, that's fun, isn't it? Would you have that much fun, you think, if you lived down there all the time? And you probably wouldn't pay a bit of attention. Holy cow. Those are some big waves. What? Oh, that's Bob's hat floating. Good grief. I thought he had floated out to sea. And his shirt floated right off of him. Oh, gee, poor Patty. But you kids really did enjoy that water. That was great. But I think we've seen enough of it. Oh, good. I think we're moving on to another whole roll of kids floating in and out of the water. And you know what is going to be interesting? This was only the first trip we did. We've got to go through this another whole trip. So just get used to it. Now that's Dan. I'm sure that's Dan. Yeah, that's Dan. Run, Dan. That's it. Now go. Now watch this. Watch out. Oh, you didn't even wait. Oh, this is the next trip to Florida. Now that's David, I know. That's Dave when he was a baby. And we went to Florida. Same house. Tom. That's Tom. And Debbie didn't go with us that time. She stayed with Kellers. There's Jim. Oh, with your soldiers, Jim. You were always building forts. And that is Dan that just slid down the hill. That's Dave. see, yeah, that's Jim building the fort. That's Tom, and there's Dan closest to us. And Jim, you're just trying to build something and they're just driving you crazy. I think Patty's with us at that time, but I don't see her at all. Look how hard those waves must have come in the night before. Whoops, Dave, you're going to get caught. Whoops. And we're just standing there watching, taking a movie, while Dave gets swept out to sea. So Dave would have been about 2 at that time. So that would have been about 1964. Yeah, if he's walking that good, I'm sure he's about 2. Oh, that's nice, Tom. Nice big brother. So what happened? You go right down again. That was Dan. I think that's Jim floating out to sea, and Tom. That was the second time that we went to Pensacola. We only went twice. I don't remember why we didn't go any more than that. Dad very often didn't even take a vacation. We would need a washing machine or something, so he would, instead of taking a vacation, he'd just take the money and we'd get the washing machine or the window air conditioner or whatever it was that we needed. But we had such a good time, maybe it wouldn't have been that much fun if we were able to go every year. We'd have gotten a little bored with it. Okay, there was Patty. I tell you, we never did learn to do anything else but back into those waves, did we? It's a shame we didn't have surfboards or something and be able to surf. Because this way we've got 4 hours of pictures of the waves coming in. Let's see, now that was Jim. That must be me, I guess, holding. No, maybe that's Patty. I have to look again. And we're still wearing swimming hats. I can't believe it. My gosh, I wonder if we have to go through Pensacola Airport and Geronimo's capture and everything else before we finish with Florida. I think that was Patty walking along. That must be me holding Dave. As I say, isn't that funny to see all those women in hats? It certainly didn't keep your hair dry. It wasn't why we wore them, I know. Oh, that is beautiful. That was the year, here we are at the Gulfarium again. But I think, excuse me, I think that was the year that about 3 or 4 of you got stomach flu. Dad and I think all except maybe Patty and myself. But everybody was sick. That's Dave. And Patty's taking care of him. She was always good at that. Hi, Dan. And that was Tom jumping down. Oh my gosh, look how gray the hair is getting. Okay, that has got to be David, I guess. Yeah, that's in the Gulfarium. They've got those same old fish still down there. Look at that big turtle. Look. Okay, now we've been to the Gulfarium twice. That's David looking in. And that's a crazy man that swims around in there. Oh, is that an ugly fish or what? Can you imagine being in there with all those creatures? No, Dave said, I can't imagine it at all. That's kind of crazy. Look at that, Dave. You don't know that guy's any different from the fish. Okay, we've seen him, been there, done that. I'm sure it was prettier when you could see it in color and the little bit of light. How do you grow up to want to be a man that crawls into an aquarium? Do you go to school for that, or is it because you don't go to school that you end up in an aquarium swimming around with a bunch of fish? Oh, look at, he's put that bucket on that turtle's head. I don't think that's too funny to you. Oh, now we're back on the beach. What are we building this time, I wonder? I know, I tell you, I've been to Florida twice. I'm getting tired. That is me with gray hair. Now I know why I got it. Crying out loud, it was all those trips and all those things. Would you look at that make-believe, what do you call that, a grill, where we're cooking that meat that we brought from home. Oh, God. Oh, what is that, for crying out loud? Looks like a steak or something. I can't believe we ate anything like that. Is that thing on slow motion or what? Now this is really speeding up the excitement of this trip, isn't it? It just might not be a bad idea to go lay in the sun for 10 minutes while this is going on. I say, you kids, you just haven't thought of anything different to do. Thank God we didn't go there more than twice, kids, or you'd be sitting here looking at this same silly stuff for the next 10 hours. So I don't know. I don't think there's any way you can fast forward it on these videos, but we've been there and done that. Well, let's finish it off. Let's finish this reel and see what else we get into. I doubt that we've got 10 minutes of flitting around in the ocean, but I should tell you a little bit of how we ended up going to Pensacola. The Webbers, Carl and Dottie Weber, who were our neighbors when we lived on